Well, let's just get right into it.
Yeah.
We're here with Javier of Stoopid Vintage. Thank you for coming on the program. I'm
Yeah.
very,
Thanks for
very
having me,
excited about
guys.
this.
It's
Right?
awesome.
So, where are you from? Where are you born and raised?
I was born in Mexico.
Okay.
I was born in Mexico in Michoacan, specifically a town called Taxicuaro, which is like 30 minutes away from like the main, I guess, city capital, which is called Morelia. And we moved here when I was about 6 years old, and ever since, spent my life here. I only go back like during winter, summer breaks, school. But yeah, that's where I'm from, and I've been pretty much raised here in Santa Maria.
For sure. So, what was that like? You're in a young adolescence. You're growing up to be six, and you
Yeah,
have a
I
whole move.
it was definitely a culture shock. I remember when I first came here and I first started school. It was definitely hard just because I didn't know English, and all my classmates around me, all teachers speak English, and it was hard to get used to. But eventually I caught on. Took me about like a yearish to get the language down. Um, Other than that, I feel like it wasn't too difficult just because I was still at the young age where I wasn't really used to a lifestyle. And so I was kind of able to adapt, compared to if I moved over here maybe at the age I am now, it'd probably be a bit harder to, kind of get the hang of
Yeah, they
things.
soak it all up.
Yeah, I
When you're
mean,
young, you're like a sponge.
yeah, exactly.
So you moved straight to Santa Maria, or
Yeah,
okay,
sure,
for
Santa
sure, for
Maria.
sure. Well, you're experiencing, like you said, culture shock. Growing up, were there any trials and tribulations, or it was kind of straight fly? You made your way.
Um, I feel like it was kind of straightforward. It wasn't really nothing too crazy that I couldn't really. Just because here in Santa Maria or California in general, it's another big like Latino community. So it wasn't too different compared to like in Mexico. It's kind of the same things. Um, but yeah, for the most part, it's pretty straightforward. Thankfully.
For sure, yeah. The demographic of the area accepted that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For sure, and that definitely helped it. So, you're growing up, Santa Maria. You go to Santa Maria High School, right? You
Yeah.
were involved with band.
Mhm.
Uh, what was first, reselling thrifted or like thrifting, or was
Yeah.
it band that kind of
It
was taking
was
up your time?
at the time it was just banned for the most part, and then I got into reselling. Actually, once I graduated, I started thrifting and getting into like the whole scene, like my senior year. Once I met my girlfriend, because she was real into thrifting and all that, and before then, I didn't hear about it. I was always like, I guess like the average person, like I don't want to buy used stuff. And she introduced me to it, and I was like, it's kind of cool. And so my senior year, I was what I guess people would call like the experimental phase, where you start, experimenting with fits and random pieces of clothing. And once I graduated, started going to Cal Poly. That's when I really kind of started reselling and buying stuff. And there was an event in Cal Poly where it was like a little market type of thing.
Was that the Cal Poly thrift or thrift Cal Poly? I saw
Yeah,
that
it
you were
was like
tagged in
a
that.
swap and shop,
Yeah,
I think is what
yeah.
they called it. And that's when I was like, okay, I'll try it. And so that's when I started buying a whole bunch of stuff, and then got into it, and it went pretty good. And so that's when I was like, oh, it's kind of cool. And that was, I think, February 2023, I think. And so that's when I pretty much started getting really into it.
For sure. So how did that feel? Not to glaze over that.
Uh-huh.
For those who don't know, Cal Poly is a very prestigious school, especially in this area. Coming from someone who immigrated at a young age, didn't know English, to a point where now you're going to one of the top
Right.
schools in the country. How did that feel?
It was definitely it definitely felt like a good accomplishment. My parents always like I would say any Latino parent would be, always, stick to school. And because growing up watching them, break their backs, come home tired every day, it's very common for parents to be field workers here or something agriculture. And they obviously just want something better for us. And so that's what I had in my mind. I always gotta do it for them. And yeah, that's pretty much what I did. Just stuck to my grades and all that. And I had two options. It was either Santa Barbara, UCSB, or Cal Poly, and I got into both. And so I ended up going to Cal Poly. I feel like that's really where I had my culture shock, just because it's a lot more diverse. Here in Santa Maria, I'm used to seeing people just like me. And over there is definitely a lot more diverse, different types of people from all over the place. And that's when I was like, oh, wow, this is, yeah. But I mean, it definitely felt good. I told my parents, and they proud for me. And yeah.
For sure. So, again, another layer of culture shock to that. You've now been adjusted to it's hard to put it into words, you know what I mean? But there's definitely a different feeling between Santa Maria and San Luis Obispo.
Yeah.
Moving into San Luis Obispo, you know what I mean, now that you're going there for school, etc. How did that feel integrating yourself into a community that didn't not necessarily they didn't even look at like you, but
Right.
more so they didn't move like you, they didn't think like you, you know
It
what I mean?
was definitely hard to get used to at first, just because there'd be people who'd come in like, oh, what are you majoring in? And they're like, oh, really, you're doing that? It's as a, I guess, like a microaggression. It's like, well, you don't think I can do it, you know um there's definitely people out there who aren't used to people like us, and they kind of look down on us. But for the most part, I feel like Cal Poly was very, very welcoming as well. They were very big on the whole diversity thing, so thankfully, it wasn't too hard to get kind of used to. And I met like-minded people too, so it's pretty cool.
For sure. So now that you're incorporating yourself in that slow scene, I did see you were on the I Want to See account, which is associated with Jeff.
Uh-huh.
You were fitted up in some vintage picture here too, because it was a clean pic.
Yeah.
I see that you're also one of 4 followers, or one of the 4 people that Jeff is following. How did you come into ties with Jeff?
Yeah, so it was, I think, I went on a date with my girlfriend, and she's like, oh, let's go to Slow. And I was like, okay. And she looked up some vintage shops. And at the time, there was a shop called the Milk Room. And that's where we went. And there was a whole bunch of sellers, reselling stuff. And that's also when I really was like, I guess, got me into thrifting. Because there's this guy who was selling a pair of pants. And I was like, I asked how much. And he said $20. I was like, shoot, $20 for a pair of pants? Say less. I thought I found a really good find and all that. And that's where I met Jeff. He was kind of, he worked at the Milk Room. And I forgot how he got me into it. But pretty much after that day, he said to come back. I can't remember for what. But I came back another day. And we started talking stuff, and then he's like, oh, how would you like to model for the store? And I was like, oh, that'd be pretty cool, that'd be tight. And so I kept going back, and we took the pictures. And after that, Milk Room closed down. Maybe like a year later, he opened up his own shop. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool, that's badass. And
So Milk Room was a conglomerate of people selling under one store.
yeah, so it was like a market that they had, but Milk Room
Okay.
is pretty much like a streetwear store.
Mm.
And they're also based out in LA, I think, and they moved out here, but they closed down. And yeah, I actually noticed that too the other day. I was looking at the people that Jeff follows, and I was like, oh, he only has like 4 followers, and I saw we were one of them. I was like, oh, that's badass. And honestly, Jeff really got me into it as well. He was much respect to him. He kind of taught me most of the stuff that I know now, and even to this day still gives me advice with business related things.
Yeah, for sure. Finding mentors in the game.
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
what I mean, 100%. That kind of transgresses to my next question. So you're starting to resell as a hobby, but then you move to San Luis Obispo, and that kind of seems to be a point where it's like, okay, this is serious now. At what point do you think, okay, I'm going to open up a store in, one of the most expensive areas in Santa Maria?
Yeah. So before this, I worked at Hibbett Sports, which is actually like 2 stores down from where we are right now. They're selling shoes. I worked there for about 3 years, and the last year I also worked at another spot in the Pomo called the Dana Adobe Ranch, and I worked those 2 jobs for about a year to save up for this spot. And just working all day, every day, I was just getting tired of it. I was like, man, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life, man, and so I was like, man, just open up a shop. I already resell. I already kind of have a pretty decent following. And, I just wanted to give it a shot because I didn't want to, really work for anyone, And that's when I was like, well, let's open up a shop. And with the help of my girlfriend and her family, my family, it was, thankfully they were all very supportive. And so I was able to open it up. But yeah, it's definitely a change just because back then it was for a hobby, just for a little side hustle. Now it's like my main hustle, so I got to put more work into it. But
Now you're playing big leagues.
Yeah, exactly.
100%.
But it's pretty cool. It's worth it. I really enjoy what I do,
Most definitely. Do you feel like by taking this jump, it's allowed you to immerse yourself heavier into the, let's say, vintage scene with figures like Jeff, etc.? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, definitely. Because I don't know if you guys are familiar with an account called Bidstitch.
Yes.
Yeah, they're like the main heads.
I saw them Thrifty Beaches when they got the oldest denims. That was pretty crazy.
Yeah, and that's So that's the thing about vintage. Um, like Thrifty Beaches was able to, I think, catch attention just because he moved into that big spot, and everyone was like, how are you gonna do that, selling used clothes? And he was able to do it. He pulled it off, and that's what got him, I think, a lot of attention. And I think it's definitely gonna be a challenge getting there up there with the big vintage names, just because I don't think I have or we have what would you call like the crazy vintage pieces. We try to stick or we try to curate more to who our clientele would buy, because most of our clientele are high school kids. They're not going to want to pay more than like 30-35 bucks for a shirt, and so I don't think it'd be reasonable to get, let's say, I don't know, like for example, like an old school band tee, like from the 90s, that other vintage people would sell like 500. I don't think it's reasonable for me to bring that in here and be like, hey, this shirt's 500. I don't think people are gonna. I mean, people will find it cool, but I don't think they'll find it at $500 cool. And that's what we get sometimes too. People come in, selling stuff to us, and they'll be like, oh well, this shirt sold for like 50 bucks. Can I get 30? And I'd have to tell them, I don't base myself off of eBay prices. I just kind of base myself off what I think people will be willing to pay. And sometimes we work out deals, sometimes we don't. But that's just kind of I think where I differentiate myself a little bit, just because we try to stick more to reasonable prices and not vintage prices, if you will.
For sure, for sure. That's a beautiful way to answer that, because my next question is, why do you think that the infrastructure, let's say, or the market share, the people who are buying clothes out in San Luis Obispo, why is that not here in Santa Maria yet? Why, you know what I mean? Why are you and Anti-Square the only real vintage shops in town? Besides, I mean, Hype Vault, etc. You know what I mean? But why is it not so big, if you will? And I think that you answered it just perfectly right there, where the demographic of people who are buying it, it's just not there yet. You know what I mean?
See, exactly. Like Thrifty Beaches, he obviously has a big following, and he has a lot of vintage people that follow him. And so for those that are into vintage, they understand why something will be worth like $500, But to like the regular person, it's like, what's $500 for a used tee? I'm not gonna pay that, I wouldn't even pay like 20 bucks for it. And I feel like that's a thing, or what kind of separates Slow from here too. It's just people here like streetwear, They like showing that they're, with the trends and all that. And I'm not saying that vintage isn't a trend right now with people here either, but I feel like that's also a big, I guess, the big difference between like here and Slow. The Beaches has people that are willing to pay, let's say, $100 for a shirt or whatever, and like I said here, high school kids aren't really can't really afford to pay that.
100%. Do you feel like the way that Santa Maria was set up, it makes it hard for places like you to exist, in the sense of it's a lower income area? You know what I mean? You don't have people who are going to one of the most prestigious colleges in the world. You have people who have, migrant parents, or maybe not even enough money for themselves, let alone for the ability to support another business.
Yeah, it's definitely a little harder, but that's why I guess we try to cater to them a bit more. Try to keep everything within a reasonable budget for them, just so they can dress the way other people dress too, and kind of join the scene as well.
For sure, for sure. I think it's a beautiful thing that you guys are doing, because beyond supplying clothes to people, you're supplying a place for people to identify with. You know what I mean? I grew up in the skateboarding scene, so having, let's say, one-way board shop as a place to understand, like, this is where we congregate and etc. There's real positive aspects to the community, and it allows for young people to look up and be like, this is what I want to do, as opposed to me and my homies are just kicking back doing nothing and have no plans other than I'm gonna go to Hancock for, I don't know, you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
There's layers to this, and if there's not intention, let's say, if the people in power, like yourself, and power is a weird way of putting it, you know what I mean? But people of influence don't have that trickle down, you know what I mean? It will never serve itself. So it's a beautiful thing that you're doing here, and I'm very, very blessed. Is this your first interview? I'm hyped. I'm hyped that I have it captured, As someone who does vintage, how do you feel like it impacts the fashion scene, in terms of, does it make fashion faster? Does it devalue the amount of product that's going out? And furthermore, how does this product compare to something like essentials selling for $100 a piece or something like that.
Yeah. Um, I think so. We try to focus specifically on like Y2K items, right? Echo, South Pole, all that type of stuff. And nowadays it's very hard to find just because where you would be able to find it, which is usually like a Goodwill. Um, recently there's a like someone who goes to like the Goodwill bins. They leaked like a chart of what Goodwill keeps and what they don't. So and you know those brands are one of those brands on the chart where they keep and they sell it for like market value. And so now it's it's just like why would they do that? They're already making a bunch of money off of the stuff that they get for free. It's just donations. And so I feel like the scarcity of being able to find those things kind of adds to the value just because they're hard to find, right? And but like stuff like this compared to like you said like streetwear like essentials SDL, I feel like this is pretty much the same thing to those who are in the vintage community. Like for example, me, I myself, I don't wear essentials or stuff like that, so I don't find it interesting. It's not pleasing to me. But something like Jinko or Echo, I'm a big Echo fan. So if I see an Echo piece and someone's selling it for $40, I might pay it just because I'm a big fan of that. And I feel like it goes the same way with other people too. They're like if they're a fan of it, they'll be willing to spend just a little bit more.
Sure, for sure. I that's an interesting perspective on that because monetarily, like for example, that Echo piece, the stitching on it, the amount of intricacies to it, there's a lot more levels to it versus an essentials piece. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And going back to the initial question, do you feel like vintage in a way supplies or cools down fast fashion?
That's a good question. Just because, and Jeff has talked about it before. He's been posting a lot of it recently. But there's a lot of clothes in this world. There's a lot of stuff that just goes unused, and a lot of people actually don't like resellers just because they take away, I guess, the cool stuff from people who just want to, don't resell and just want to add to their closet. But I definitely think resellers are not essential, but are very helpful to that problem just because they take old clothes and, give it a new life, give it to people who will wear it and won't just throw it away and it'll go to a landfill somewhere. So I definitely think that they kind of help the fast fashion problem. Like it's just small solution. Just because I know Shein is very popular nowadays and I know Shein doesn't really have the best reputation, I guess, just because it's very cheap material, and they just get away with it using the cheap labor and all that, right? And they sell it for cheap too. I guess that's why people buy it because it's cheap and it's trendy and it's fashionable, I guess. But it's not necessarily the best way to go. Like my sisters, they buy from Shein every now and then. I tell them not to just because they add to that fast fashion problem. And I personally I rather stick to vintage, stick to something that's already been made and that is made with effort and with thought behind it.
Yeah, for sure, and has value because of the branding on top of it. You know what I mean, or the story, etc. That's definitely something that I talked to when we did the De La Cruz denim interview. What you're buying, of course, it's the high quality fabric, etc. whatever, but it's more so the love and intention that went into it, how this piece traveled to and fro. You know what I mean, and the fact that it ended up here and right now. If you appreciate it, then you'll spend that price.
Definitely.
You'll spend that price. So I saw on your post, you're doing giveaways. The Black Friday giveaway. You did a charity food drive. I saw that. That was awesome. Do you feel like stores like yourself are pivotal for the community to progress?
I think so, simply because a big chain store like Foot Locker isn't going to be doing that. So I guess a local store that bonds with the community and creates that bond with the community definitely helps out the community. Like we did when once we found out that ICE got into town, they started raiding a whole bunch of people like during Christmas time. That's when we were like, oh man, what can we do? And my girlfriend said, oh, what if we have a toy and food drive just for the people that need it? And I was like, yeah, it's a good idea. And so we did that, and we had a pretty good turnout, thankfully. We were able to give it to, I think they're called the 805 DocuFund, something like that. And they took it and they gave it to those who needed it. And we're always doing giveaways, always having cool sales just to make sure that everyone was able to kind of be a part of this small community and think that we're building.
Most definitely, most definitely. It's a beautiful thing. Again, I'm reiterating myself, but when you see things like that, it's usually from the college or from older people, or it's not from something that feels young and vibrant. You know what I mean? So when you see
Mm.
someone your age putting on, you know what I mean, that there's real virtue to that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I think a lot of people can appreciate that, especially younger people. I think it's interesting how, especially in Santa Maria, the whole ICE issue has kind of turned everybody, or not everybody, but a lot of people that you wouldn't expect to be uh, almost activist isn't the right word, you know,
Hmm.
but active in terms of understanding it and how we can aid this, you know what I mean,
Definitely.
without even necessarily having to introduce an amount of provocativeness to it. You know what I mean? Like what you did, for example. There's no anger, there's no hatred, there's nothing. It's all just love and giving back. You know what I mean? There's
Exactly.
no clashing. You know, and
Yeah.
that's how we really resolve these problems. I feel like is by finding ways to understand the problem, but understand that we are the solution to that problem, and that we can't,
Definitely.
you know, what I mean, clash with the issue directly. You know what I mean? That we are the solution.
Yeah.
Um, Again, a beautiful thing, and it's beautiful that clothes is what pushes that narrative. You know what I mean? It's not even necessarily that you're going to and fro giving political speeches. You know, someone's selling
Yeah.
clothes, and that's how you give back to your community. That served you. You know what I mean? It's a beautiful thing. If you had to get rid of one, Echo or South Point?
Ah, bro. Like, Red just wouldn't wear it anymore or not sell it? Or?
Like if one you had a Thanos snap, like doesn't exist anymore, like it's gone.
Yeah, it's hard because I got both on right now. This is Echo. This is South Pole. Um, that's hard because Echo makes good. I think Echo is my go-to for tops, for sweaters, shirts, and South Pole is definitely my go-to for pants. You know, but if I had to get rid of one, it'd be South Pole, just because I'm a big Echo enforcer. I love Echo, man.
That's funny, man. Do you feel like the resurgence of brands like these has promoted an amount of scalping throughout the entire, let's say, world? You know what I mean? Uh, I remember when I first started thrifting. I think it was freshman year, sophomore, or something like that. Let's
Hmm.
go to Main Street Thrift. They got everything. And then a year or two later, you're going to Main Street Thrift and pants are $10 to $20, and you're like, damn, what happened? So, how do you feel like the scalping, let's say, movement has affected the clothing scene?
Honestly, I think resellers are slightly an issue to that, just because thrifts see that resellers are buying these things cheap and they're reselling it for more, and it's well, I guess I should say resellers are the issue, but like stores like these thrifts, you see, oh well, if they're selling it for more, we can sell it for a bit more, and they're still making profit. But yeah, I mean, it sucks because they raise the prices for everyone, not just resellers. So even for those who buy $5 things because that's all they can afford. Now they're gonna have to pay $10, for a t-shirt or a pair of pants, and it's pushing it. And they're not the ones. They're not buying to resell. They're buying because they need it. So it sucks, especially like I said, Goodwill, that they have the chart of things that to keep and sell for market value. Those who probably can't afford it and don't resell. They're like, oh, I can't afford it. I can't
Especially
get.
because that's a chain. That's not even
Yeah,
a
and
mom
I
and pop
can't.
shop.
I can't get
Yeah.
my hands on it. And so that's another reason why we do giveaways. Um, to give those who want something like Echo or South Pole or something like that, to have a chance for them to be able to get it on them.
For sure. How has clothing, well, besides just impacted your life in terms of on a stylistic sense, how you have come to find yourself and who you identify with? How has that helped you flesh yourself out?
Yeah, I definitely think it's definitely a big part of me. I definitely think I express myself through the way I dress, thanks to my girlfriend. She's the one, like I said, who got me into thrifting, got me into style and all that. And my senior year, like I said, was my kind of my experimental phase. And now that looking back at it, I don't know what I wore and why I wore it, but I thought it was cool back then. Um, but yeah, I definitely think everyone needs that experimental phase to kind of find themselves. And yeah, I think clothes is definitely like you say, it's like you're like when you're walking, it's just you gotta think of it as yourself as a walking billboard. What you're wearing, it definitely gives off an impression. Like, how do I put this? For someone who doesn't know me, they see me dressed like this. They're gonna they it's usually they're one or two things. Oh, like he's into thrifting, vintage, and all that, because he's kind of what vintage heads wear right now. Or which is this is like the thing with like more older people. I'm a cholo, you know. I'm a gamer, which is I'm dressed all baggy, and that's what my mom tells me. You know, she's like, oh, why don't you dress like a man? Everyone's gonna think you big game bay and all that. I was like, man, I don't do none of that. But yeah, I definitely feel like it's a very main way to express, you know, myself and how other people express themselves too.
Do you feel like with the resurgence of vintage that there's an amount of, let's say, appropriation of style?
I think so. But at the same time, if someone likes a piece, then you know they're more than welcome to wear it. Um, I've seen people wear stuff because they think it's cool, but they don't necessarily know too much about it. Like for example, I'm sure you guys have seen the like someone who wears a band shirt, and someone comes up like, "Oh, name 3 songs," and they're like, "Oh, I don't know. I can't name 3 songs. I just thought it was cool." And that's when the other person's like, "Man, you're not even a real fan. Why you got that on?" You know. But I kind of thought like that at first, but after you know, I thought about it. I was, man, well, they spent their money on it. I can't. They can wear it however they want, even if they don't know. If they think it's cool, and that's cool, you know.
For sure. I think it's so interesting because the people who I've talked to in terms of their opinions on thrifting, people who are actually resellers are a lot less gatekeeping than the people who are just consumers of it, if that makes sense. And me included, especially when I was young, a lot of people just want to have an opinion about something. But like, I definitely have said something akin to that where it's like, oh, you don't even really like that. Like, take that off. But do you really need to? You know what I mean? To be able to appreciate the fashion. Fashion was at one point tied into culture, and it represented who you were, how you grew up, what you were around. Do you feel like vintage in a way has diluted that at all?
I don't think so. I think if anything, it adds to it a little bit. Like you said, you know, fashion was a form of culture. Like, if you look just back in time, like let's say take LA for example, you have the Chicanos, right? You have them wearing the zoot suits and whatnot. You know, it's just, I think it was, you know, really cool the way they identify themselves. And sadly, you know, people hate on them for that. You know, they see someone dressed in zoot suit and they, you know, throw, you know.
Yeah, the famous riots in the 50s.
Yeah, they throw hateful words and all that just for the way they dress, you know. And I just really, I guess I've stopped looking at people with that kind of like judgy mindset, like, oh, you don't know much about that, why are you wearing it, you know? Like for example, like I myself, some people might think, like people my age, I think, oh, he probably skates, right? I don't know how to skate, bro. I'm a big old poser. I dress like a skate, but I don't. I pennyboard. That's about it, just for, you know, cruising. But I don't skate. I'm a big old poser. But see, and that's an example of someone who actually skates looks at me like, man, you don't even skate. Take that off, you know. Like I like wearing skate shoes. I like wearing D3s, DCs, Globes. But I don't even skate, you know. I just wear them because I think they look cool. I like chunky shoes. But yeah, I definitely think that vintage kind of adds to it a little bit.
For sure. I think it's definitely made it more accessible. Well, and I think that also intertwines with the internet. You know what I mean? That
yeah,
this information wasn't readily available. So prior to, you kind of were just dressing and what, you know what I mean? You had I don't know, whatever shirt your mom put you on. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's cool seeing like the behind the scenes type of stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
You don't have that big of a digital footprint, so it's hard for me to really, you know what I mean? Yeah. I want to have like my Nardwuar moment and be like, so you went to this, and then, you know. I mean, above all else though, I think that your story is real. It's important. It's important for the city because there aren't a lot of examples of something similar to it. And furthermore, there aren't a lot of examples of people who are accessible like that. Like, when I look at Anti-Square, that's a conglomerate. That's something that me as an individual, I mean, depending on how you move, etc. But if I'm a consumer, I'm not thinking I'm going to walk into a store and see Mr. Anti-Square. But if I walk into here, I'm going to see Mr. Stoopid. You know what I mean? So that's why I think it's important. That's why I'm really happy. This is going to be the first interview. 1054 is kind of taking a little hiatus. So this is going to be the first one coming back.
Okay,
and
cool.
A new era, you know what I mean? And I think that that's what your store represents, is a new era in Santa Maria where people like you and me can make it and have something to stand on and you know, 40 acres and a mule isn't dead. You know what I mean? You're chasing it, and you're a real good example of that. We've been going for about 30 minutes. I would love to have you back on. I think that down the line we'll
awesome.
definitely, you know, what I mean, have more to
Yeah,
talk about.
that'd be
Prior
awesome.
to this ending, what are your future endeavors? What are you hoping 2026 has in store for you?
Really hope on expanding, making the store as best as possible, and hopefully opening up maybe a few more. That'd be pretty cool. Just because I see other people do it, and I see it goes well for them. So I mean, might as well, you know. There's really like if I fail, then I learned a whole bunch out of it. Um, it's better to try it and fail than to not try it at all and then think what could have been, you know. If anything, we don't like lose anything. We gain knowledge and all that. So
For sure, better to love than to never loved at all. Kind
exactly,
of
yeah,
a
yeah,
thing.
exactly,
100%.
exactly.
What advice would you give to the youngin at Santa Maria High School, whether he's in band or whether he's skating or he's doing this or doing that? One thing you tell them.
Definitely say just follow what you love. You know, that's what I did. I wanted to do something that I love, that I enjoyed doing, and if you really put effort into it, thought, and love into it, it becomes a reality. You know, so yeah, definitely pursue what you love. You know.
Most definitely. Well,
Yeah.
you heard him. Pursue what you love. Javier of Stoopid Vintage here in the town center. Address going to be in the description. Come show love. Thank you for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me, man.
Most beautiful blessings.
awesome.
You know, we'll have you soon.
Appreciate it. Can I say one thing?
Yeah,
Is
of
that
course,
cool?
of course.
A lot of people see, like you said, Mr. Stupid, but there's also Mrs. Stupid. We're co-owners, and I just don't want to put her to a side. You know, she's definitely a big part of this thing too, and she couldn't be here unfortunately.
Oh, okay, for sure.
But yeah, she wanted to.
Next time. We
Next
gotta
time
get
she'll
her.
be
Yeah,
here for
100%.
sure.
The other half is Stupid. Well, shout out both her and you. Well, Adelina, that was her name, right? Just to get that out there.
Catalina. Yeah.
Catalina. There we go. I thought it was Adelina. My
Yeah,
bad.
yeah, no, it's all good.
Love to them. Show love. Santa Maria 1054. Stupid. We up soon. All love, man. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.